Hello, Leanne. We're so excited to pick your brain about all things, not just AI, but how we can keep the humanness, right, in AI, how it can help our businesses, but also getting really clear on how it won't help or what it won't replace. So, if I can just kick off with a question around what's your best thoughts and advice around how do we push through, because you talk about pushing through this AI overwhelm while still maintaining humanity. How do we do that? What's your best tips and advice as a starting point on how we do that?
Yeah, great starting question. So, the thing is that there's just so much hype around AI and all this pressure to experiment with all these tools or find the best tools to suit your purposes and so this is what contributes to overwhelm. We've already got enough on our plates, let alone I've got to try and embrace this thing, which for a lot of people who aren't technical, it's just completely left field, right? So, I just say just start it slow. Just start with opening up your Copilot, ChatGPT, whatever just a standard thing is, which bit of a trusted source, Microsoft Copilot or OpenAI, which has become well known. Just start small. So don't go big. Just think, okay, I want just help with fixing up this email. I've drafted this email. How can you just improve it? How can you just start with small little tasks like that, just to get comfortable with it and realize it's not so scary. So that is really what you have to do, but just don't get sucked into, oh my gosh, I'm overwhelmed. I have to get no, just pull it right back. And don't think about creating all these new projects now that you have this capacity with AI, like people keep saying. No, start small, just do work on a task that you need help with, or you're procrastinating on getting that article started, or you need to put together a marketing plan, you haven't quite got there yet. Just use it as a starting point and then just go with it from there.
Yeah, that you go, Nick.
Well, I was just going to say, because I'm really curious also to understand what are the different ways that we can use this AI to keep the hustle healthy. That's kind of we've talked about the fact that there can be some really good benefits in terms of time. So to move through the overwhelm, you just start taking some steps. But what are some bigger ways that you see that we can actually use AI to keep the hustle healthy?
Yeah. So coming back to the thing you said about humanity, like I don't want people to be using AI to replace them. Like my little catchphrase is we want AI to enhance us, not replace us. So there's too many people who are just overwhelmed, exhausted, burnt out, and so they just go, all right, I'm just going to use these AI tools to just replace my thinking. Oh, just hand it over. Oh, I need to write this email, this article. I'll just get AI to do it. That is not the right way, because the quality is just going to be lacking. It's going to come out generic, robotic, lifeless. You'll sound like everyone else, and you want to ensure that it remains unique to you. So you want it to be like basically pulling out your expertise and experience and using, like, amplifying that with the tool. So what I recommend is to work with it by training it up, which a lot of people don't realize you can do. Train up these tools, so the large language models like Copilot and ChatGPT and Gemini. So start with training up on your business. This is what we're all about. This is our products, our services, our mission, vision, values, all that kind of stuff, our story. And then go, great, remember that, like upload your style guides, whatever you've got. And then the next step is then teaching your brand voice. And look, I come from a copywriting marketing background, right? And brand voice was so important for content marketing, for copywriting, but it's just been lost with AI. People forget that that was the driving force of getting a copywriter most of the time, to get it to sound good and sound like them. So you want it to also sound like you and not like everyone else. So that is the next thing you have to train up on. And then you want it to ensure that it knows who your audience is, who your customers are, your current or potential customers. So if it doesn't know that, once again, the output is just going to miss the mark. So you need to train up to understand those three core things to ensure quality, and that it actually complements what you're all about and not replacing you. And then you can then take over and challenge the output it gives you. Like, you can test those things. Yes, I agree. What's giving me? No. And as you go through time of using it, you're training it up. So mine, after like 2 years of consecutive usage of ChatGPT, it can nail my brand voice, and I can write an article in an hour that I feel comfortable putting out to the world because it sounds like me, but I've had enough input in it that it's still me.
Mm, that's so important, isn't it? That we don't lose that. And I think that's That's a key if you are putting out content into the world. And I know that there are clients that use AI to help them with proposals and to help them with, reports or whatever it is back to their clients or seeking work. But we can't lose us within that. And I think what you said is really important there around training it up to understand who you are, because that is what I didn't like about ChatGPT when it first came in. It just sounded awful. And it was like, but I would never say things like that. And so I felt like at the beginning, I would spend just as much time rewriting something as what it, like, so there was in my head, there were no time efficiencies whatsoever. And I think my lesson in that was I didn't actually, like, I was just doing it intuitively instead of perhaps going and finding out, well, how do I make it work best for me? And what's everything you've just said, I didn't have that in my knowledge bank when I first opened it up. So, but I see our clients, using it particularly helpful around getting started with training, with job descriptions, with ads for, positions available. There's so many different ways that I can see business owners and leaders can really be using this to start to help them. And I so relate to the procrastination or overthinking thing that if I had that when I started my first business, it would be, like, just give me something to, because staring at a blank page is really hard to get started working with. But I'm really curious. So, if that is freeing us up time and we're able to find ways for AI to work for us, what is it that you think AI is not going to replace? Because a lot of people are quite fearful that AI is going to take over the world and nobody will have a job and, all these things. Given your expertise, and you can see where the future is going with this, what's it not going to replace for us?
Oh, 100%. It is not going to replace the human connection. And I'm currently writing a book about this called the AI Human Fusion. And in that, and yeah, you guys are going to be featured. In that book, I'm really saying that human connection is going to be so vital, even more so with AI, because when things like deep fakes come out and people can easily replicate your voice on the phone, the whole no like trust factor, like ensuring trust before you make a transaction, is just going to be harder and harder. So we're going to actually have to go old school, traditional, meeting up with people face to face more often, I think, for networking, for some Asian cultures, they only do sales transactions in person. I actually think it's going to happen, rather than hiding more behind the screens. From a cybersecurity point of view, as well as we just want to have that human interaction. And I actually mentioned in the book, it's so ironic with during COVID times, even the most introverted person still wanted to talk to people, to humans, at one point. And it's ironic that only a few short years later, there's AI, and some people are using AI to just write and comment on LinkedIn, for example. And I'm like, we don't want bots talking to bots. Like, how does that serve us as people? And just what you're saying as well about things like job descriptions, or even I've heard with award writing and stuff, that award applications, that people just use AI and hand it all over. No, we need to see the human come through that. We need to make sure your expertise, your experience is coming through those things. So what's going to be really important is having humans managing the tools, not just letting the tools run rampant. And I'm seeing that especially for like marketing. I, as a copywriter who's been in this space for a couple of years, I can easily see if something's AI generated. And more people are also developing the sixth sense. And so you want to be aware of falling into that trap of thinking, oh, I'm being so productive, and thinking about them, how the tool's helping them, and not thinking about how it's being received. And that is the problem. They're not thinking about how it's going to come across. They're thinking, I just smashed out that in 5 minutes. How good am I? It's going to affect your brand potentially. Or people won't go for that job because it sounds generic and they don't think a human really cares enough. Maybe it reflects the culture. I don't know. This is kind of the vibes you just might put across. Or I know of award submissions. I've heard from judges totally just ignore all the submissions that were obviously AI generated because there was not enough human. So the humanity, ironically, is going to be even more important.
We've had
Mm.
clients who have been recruiting and they received cover letters that were pretty much identical. So it was obvious that it was using AI, and immediately they don't kind of get
Yep,
a
the other
look.
side.
And
Yeah, the other way
yeah.
too, 100%. So don't think, oh, great, I can apply for this job and not. No, I mean, look, you can use AI to potentially help you that way, but you need to put a lot of work into it to make sure it is you and it's not just you saying, hey, see what they've asked for here. Can you just answer this and make me
Mm.
sound good? Like authenticity is just so important. And that's just something that it's been overlooked with the whole hype around AI, which really frustrates me.
So we have
Mm.
to think about what are we inputting, what's the brief, and then how are we working with the output of that as well. I'm really curious about what other trends you're going to see, or what other trends you're seeing that we're all going to see, because even that shift to more face to face, I mean, that sort of makes sense, even coffee chats, but there is that convenience of Zoom, Google Hangouts, whatever it might be. But that deep fake is scary. The voices, I don't even like saying hello, Nikki. Well, I don't even say hello, Nikki speaking if you call me, if anybody rings me, I'm sorry, but it's going to be a really different answering of the phone to what it would have been like 3 years ago, where it's like, hi, Nikki speaking, da 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 da. Because I'm like, I don't know, are they recording me? So I'm going to start a trend now. So what else do you think are some of the key trends that you're projecting for the future? What's going to shift in the world of business when it comes to AI?
Yeah, so there's a lot of talk around agentic AI, so like agents. So AI agents basically doing all back end stuff. So say one bot does the research and the other bot writes the article, another bot puts in the SEO, another bot repurposes it into social, and that's just like a marketing point of view. Or there could be other steps as well. Like if it is recruitment purposes, it could be this bot reviews all the resumes, and then this bot then
Mm.
picks out the best ones based on the criteria, and this bot then sends out Zoom links to line up meetings or whatever. So this kind of stuff we'll need a lot of human input though to make sure that they're doing the right things and once again the person on the other side is getting the best experience, but that kind of stuff is going to come out more and more, and at the moment like I haven't played around with it because it seems very fiddly and techy. So I'm assuming it'll evolve and become a lot more accessible and easy for the everyday person to set up these things. Same with, yeah, like I know someone who's got a phone agent. She's already had a virtual phone agency for years and now introducing AI ones. I'm not a fan of getting an AI voice of me pretending to be me on phone calls or anything. I do not believe in that. I don't believe in digital avatars pretending to be me. I prefer to have one that I've made up that calls itself my assistant rather than a replica of me.
Wow,
Just
but that can be done? A
it can
replica?
be done.
We could
This is
create
the
a,
thing.
oh, yeah, no,
It can be
no
done.
thanks.
And I see some of the other AI experts kind of going, oh, how cool is this? Is the digital avatar of me and it sounds like me.
Uh,
And I'm like, why are you making this a thing? I do not agree with it. Like I said, I'm about authenticity and I don't, because then people start to question, is it even Leanne running that webinar or is it a replica of her? And is actually what was it Leanne's script or did someone else random put that script and just slap my name on it and say I did it?
Also,
And
how
this
much easier is it then for someone else to take your avatar
that's
Yeah.
it. So
and
I think you
replicate it? Like,
create
were you
yeah.
even involved in creating the avatar? Okay, this is freaking me out now.
Yeah. So this is where I say don't fall down that rabbit hole going shiny objects, so cool. Just be look, I've had, there's 150 episodes of my own podcast, plus probably another 50 podcasts I've been a guest on. People can easily take my voice and do it if they wanted to. I'm not going to make anything easier. But look, just don't get caught up in the fear factor. We just got to trust that enough like government regulations start coming in and these people will be heavily penalized if that starts to happen. But yeah, agentic AI is going to be a trend. There's definitely going to be a lot of focus around responsible and ethical usage. So I'm going to put emphasis onto AI policy this year. I'm going to start working with an IP lawyer. So she'll be part of my team if anyone wants to have an AI policy to really explain full transparency at your company, at your business, where you use AI, where you don't use AI, how you protect your clients' data. That's going to become a real core thing this year. And also about the whole security of data. That is a big thing, has also become focus. As we speak, DeepSeek just came out, like China's equivalent of ChatGPT. which apparently can be taken offline, which is meant to be more secure because all the data you insert stays on your own computer. But that brings up questions itself about, well, how powerful is your computer? Can it handle it? Do we need to then start to buy other computers that are just for AI usage? Do we have to turn off the internet every time we want to use AI? And is that going to work? All these kind of questions. And there's like sustainability questions as well, like environmentally, like there's a lot of, I won't go into it, but like the data, the power, it needs to be powered somehow. And that's also a cause of concern. So now that I think people are starting getting over the initial excitement, now reality is starting to hit in. How's this going to look long term, and people putting in proper practices and just being aware of how this is going to work in the long term.
Well, it's interesting you bring up environment because I wanted to ask you about that because I heard something about the environmental impact, and then now I feel guilty every time I put something into Chatty Cathy, which is our nickname for ChatGPT. Like, is it that bad for the environment? Like, even just every little time I use it, because I don't know what to do with that information.
I know. I haven't looked into it like much yet. I probably will need put that into my book somewhere, but I have been hearing all sorts of things about, oh, this needs to be developed and this needs to be developed, and every search you do create this much power, and as more and more people use this stuff, we need to look at this. So really curious to see where it goes. And yeah, like we've destroyed the world enough as it is. Hopefully AI doesn't do it more. But it's the kind of questions that I want people to just pause and think about. Like I did put a post on LinkedIn about, let's just pause for a second about DeepSeek. Everyone's like, oh, it's so easy to just get caught up in this whirlwind of AI, the coolness factor. And I say, look, just like I said, to start small, just start dabbling with it. Don't freak out too much. Just don't overinvest in big projects, and don't overinvest in all the new tools or whatever. And I mean, it goes against productivity if you're just constantly playing with tools anyway. But we just need to keep our human brain active and thinking about it, not just get caught up in it. And I think that's something that, yeah, it's very easy to do, especially if you think's exciting and new. But all right, there are implications of this. And especially if you do have a team, you want to make sure everyone's on the same page with it. And yeah, don't kind of just go crazy with it before, like I'm saying with DeepSeek, it's just been released. Let's just work out the bugs before everyone dives onto it. But
yeah,
people just get excited.
Well, it's interesting because I wonder, when you look at the sort of the business landscape, do you think that there's a big uptake in business around AI? Do you think some of the bigger corporates and some of the communities out there of small to medium businesses, do you have any sort of stats on how much of a take up that is? How many percentage of people are actually utilizing that in business nowadays?
It's probably lower than you think. I did see some stats recently about Australia and New Zealand, and we're way down the bottom in terms of implementation. I think because we're very wary about it all. I can't remember what the stats were, but definitely the big organizations, just so much wariness around the security. And right. So like I know my sister-in-law works at a large accounting firm, and they're only just maybe starting to implement AI, but being very cautious with it. So that's once we kind of get over the security thing, like I'm trying to do it for my own clients, even smaller clients. Like there's a legal client, I go, oh, the potential of, imagine if you can just upload all the course, the case notes, all the case notes, pages and pages and pages, and train the tool to understand what the judge would be like, in court, and their biases or whatever, and then come up with what potential objections or what would they wanted to see, and like, how good would that be? But I don't want to use ChatGPT to help them with their training for their workshop. I want to find a good secure platform so I feel comfortable, saying it's okay for you to use this, because then it comes back on me too. So there's a lot of tiptoeing still overseas. Like there's an equivalent of me, Heather Murray, who's a UK copywriter turned non-techie AI trainer, very similar. And she seems to be like going everywhere with these big clients all over there, because everyone seems a lot more on board than here. It's very much like I had a conversation with Ticketmaster the other day, and about doing a talk for them end of next month, and they're like, all the senior leaders are still like completely brand new, have no idea. And I'm like, okay, so that's an example of one of the companies here barely using it still 2 years or so after ChatGPT was released. So
Yeah. Yeah. Because I would imagine, you've got your first fast followers
yeah,
I think of that bell curve always about there's always going to be the laggers and the majority of people who join at the same time. What piece of advice would you give somebody who is listening to this conversation, runs their own business or is a leader in business and is kind of like on the fence going, oh, I just, do I invest time and effort and energy? Like, for what purpose? Because it's moving so quickly that if I invest in getting my whole team trained in something, is that something that's only going to be relevant for the next 3 months? And therefore it's just like, why am I going down this path? So I'm just curious if you could talk to that for our people who are sitting on the fence a little bit around AI.
that is yeah, that question actually is exactly what my publisher said I have to talk about in my first chapter. So I'm going to go into that. Yeah, I think you need to it's not going to go away, but you can't also dig your head in the sand. It is going to keep changing, but if it's just like social media, the internet, even like electricity when that came out, there's only so long you can just avoid it, and then you have to kind of come on board and just kind of get your head around it. So what I teach in my training, it's quite often just the basics in terms of the mindset around it. So like the ethics, responsible usage, because also we're writing my book and I make sure it's it's still relevant after it goes to print, right? So I'm talking more big picture, which isn't going to change. So just how you approach it, keeping it human, knowing when you use it as a tool to support you, when does the human just take over, when are you falling into bad habits, and knowing like to recognize that's happening. But getting the training with your team is not a waste of time, because what I teach is very basics, like training up to understand your business. It's honestly, it's just getting their hands dirty and seeing what's possible and where the limitations are. Because look, they're going to be doing it anyway, whether you know it or not. Maybe they're completely denying that they're using AI, but they're using it, or they're completely freaked out by it. So the best thing you can do as a leader is just help like ease people into it. Go, it's okay, safe space. I know you want to use it. I think it could be useful. Let's do it properly. Let's just start doing this and this. Just don't go over investing, spending tens of thousands of dollars on promises of things that aren't quite ready yet to trust, like tools that I wouldn't trust my business hand over. That's what I would do. So that's what my training is, honestly, just making everyone feel going from like unprepared, because AI just kind of appeared out of nowhere, to prepared, and feeling going from unclear and having no idea what the next steps are and what tools to use, to much more clearer, and then going from like being unskilled to skilled, and actually having the skills and the confidence to give it a go, but know when. Okay, it's given me that starting point. I now know what to do to take over, to prompt it, or just take it offline. So that's really what it is right now. It's a mindset thing that you need to work on with your team. So don't go into training about tools, because they will maybe redundant, irrelevant, bought out 6 months. You don't know. But the concepts, that is not going to go away.
So important. And it was interesting what you just said then around, people are probably using it outside of work anyway. So as a leader, we want to be on the front foot, because if we bury our head in the sand, and especially our younger generation who are coming into the workforce, if they're all over it, and we haven't stopped to think about the repercussions or to talk about how we use AI in this business. And like you said, the policy around what is okay to use it for and what is not, then we could end up in a really sticky situation with people who know how to do it, going ahead and just on their own without any direction. And then we've got those who feel intimidated by the change, who may be a bit slower to learn and adapt, and feeling that gap get bigger and bigger. So it's definitely topical, and it's definitely, a key thing that's not going away. So we really need to work out how we're going to use it the best in our business. Look, this has been a fascinating conversation. I loved our last conversation we have. It is opening my eyes more and more to how we can use this in our business. And I'm curious, as we wrap up, we often say at the end of our podcast, what's an actionable action that our listeners can take in the next 24 hours? And I guess I want to kind of make it a little bit more broader for you know, depending on who's listening, perhaps make it more personal around what we can do to get more comfortable with AI. So can you think of something that we could do within 24 hours that would be helpful to just take that one step closer to understanding and using AI?
Oh, okay, yes. So one fun little exercise I get people to do just to see the difference with brand voice. So I mean, you want to train up and all that, but what I recommend is just getting to say, okay, say please. I use please and thank you. I think it's just good
Manners.
be polite. But I say, say something like, please write me a 500-word article on insert a random topic relevant to your industry, right? Ask it to do that, see what it gives you, then say, thank you, please rewrite in a professional and conversational tone. Then see how it changes slightly. The message will be there, but the wording will be different. Then say, okay, please rewrite in a professional, conversational, and quirky tone, or insert some other random word, right? And see how it changes again. And this is a really fun exercise to show you putting your input in, how it changes the output. And it just gives you a really good example of when people just go, write me this, generic, but as you just add this. And you can only imagine if you say, you can even add, and write it for women who are 50 plus in senior leadership roles, and then see how it changes again. And then you'll realize how the context of audience changes it. So that's a little fun exercise. And you can just see what I mean by why you need to train it up and give direction.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that so much. You've just reminded me at Christmas time, we had my sister and I were responsible for the family Christmas for all the fun activities. And we had all the logistics and all the instructions of the things that we were doing over the Christmas Eve, Christmas Day. But we kind of wanted to jazz it up. So we actually put it into AI and said, create an invitation for the family members and write it in the voice of the Grinch. And it was hilarious what it came back with. We loved it. We had to, send it off to my dad because it did say he's that old. He's probably remembers when Christmas was invented. And we're like, oh, ouch.
I love it.
Are we allowed to distribute this amongst the family? So that was a lot of fun that we had with it. And as we're sitting there going, well, we want this to be a bit more jazzier and a bit more fun than what our brains were not in that space at all. So I can see how doing that is really useful. And on this note, I'll wrap up. But I remember somebody telling us it's like you got to think about AI like your hungover intern. Like they're super enthusiastic and they want to help, but they're not 100% on point today. So be careful that what you ask is like it's just the quality of the question that you ask it is going to determine the quality of the answer.
Yeah, I say the assistant thing. I haven't tried the hungover one, but yeah, that's a new green assistant, but I like that too.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. Goodbye from Nikki as well. She had to shoot off just a little bit earlier, but it's been lovely having you here. And we'll be back in your listening ears again shortly. Thanks, Leanne.
Thanks, Ness.